Okay, so today we're in the National Museum of Rome, which is right by the train station. This is interesting because this is statuary from Republican times, before the empire, before Julius Caesar. These are portrait busts of people, portrait heads. It would have been in private homes. Except this one would not have been in a private home. This would have been, this was found at Tivoli. And according to the sign, it's interesting because it has a young male body and an old male head. So this would be like a retired general. Interesting. And this goes back to 2nd century BC. Now this is a newly renovated museum. When I say newly, I mean in the last 20 years. So it has a nice courtyard. And the focus of this museum is, instead of the collections of the popes, these are other archaeological finds. Germanicus, Drusus, other members of the family, they're not sure who. Maybe Agrippa Posthumus. We have to watch I Claudius to find out his fate. I think he was murdered. This is a Roman calendar, or what's left of it. This is a really interesting part of the calendar. See, next to the sea, there's a Roman inscription. This is arguably the origin of April Fool's Day. Now this is from about 6 BC. Look at the translation down here. Here's the translation to that one that we just looked at. We've already looked at those busts. There's the fragments of the calendar. Now this is a statue of Augustus as Pontifex Maximus. This goes with the Ara Pacis we saw yesterday. Head priest of Rome. And this nice little piece over here is from Ostia. It's like a little altar. Very nice. No wonder I never saw anything substantial at Ostia. Everyone's got all the good stuff here. Okay, on this altar from Ostia, you can see the she-wolf with Romulus and Remus. Of course, Romulus murdered Remus. Nice way to start a series. Here's another nice piece from Ostia. A young woman dressed in the robes of Artemis. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And the sign says this is from about 60 AD. And as long as we're looking at women, that's a portrait of Livia and another portrait of Livia. And over here, Antonia, the mother of Claudius. You can see all these folks come to life by Claudius, of course. And there's the evil Caligula, who, while not the worst of the emperors, Commodus was worse. He certainly set a high bar for Commodus to try and exceed. Germanicus and Tiberius, strange man. We visited his castle in Capri a couple of years ago. The sign says this is Tiberius as a young man right after his adoption by Augustus. Tiberius, of course, was the natural son of Livia, and he was adopted by Augustus. Alexander the Great there. A couple more Alexanders. This is Herodotus, obviously not a real portrait, maybe a copy of a Greek portrait. Not sure who that's. Hermes. This is interesting because you have a head and the little head. Crazy. Pittacus. Don't really know. Now this room has two exquisite bronzes. This is of a Hellenistic prince, 2nd century BC. An idealized body, but a portrait head. Look how the head is out of proportion to the rest of the body. And this is the companion piece, the boxer. These were found in 1888 at the Baths of Constantine. They were being excavated. The boxer and the prince. These are extremely well preserved, to state the obvious. Here he is looking at us out of antiquity. He's saying, "Hey man, want a box? Let's box." Yeah. Okay, in this room we have Hellenistic art of the 2nd to 1st century BC. Mainly copies of Greek originals. And of course, the most beautiful piece in here is the copy of the Aphrodite over there. We'll get to her in a minute. First, we're going to look at some lady adherents of Bacchus doing their Bacchus dances. And then over here, this very nice copy of Aphrodite. A rather modest looking Aphrodite, wouldn't you say? She's kind of covered herself, so you didn't even need a fig leaf later on. Very nice. And here's some strange looking urn thing. Not sure what that is. Another nice female figure. Okay, I want to go back to this Aphrodite. Check her out from the back. So this is the ideal, the Greek ideal of feminine beauty. The lady has some curves. Slender, but with curves. Not like your emaciated models of today. And remember, this is a Roman copy of a Greek original. The Greek original is probably 400 BC. I take that back. It's in the style of 4th century BC, but it's a copy of a 1st century BC Aphrodite. Check out this girl's little toe. Wow. Well, that's not an accident either. Here's her other little toe. Unless somewhere in the mists of time those toes have been chopped out, but even so, this one hasn't been. Okay, there is a statue of Zeus found in Tuscany. Interesting. I want to pause a moment to give you a sense of the scale of this magnificent palace. Palazzo Massimo, that is now part of the Roman Museum. Fantastic. All right, here's Sabina. Not Sabina the witch, Sabina the emperor's wife. Okay, so this is a bust of Commodus, who for my money was the worst of the Roman emperors, even worse than Caligula, son of Marcus Aurelius. He's also the guy who was the emperor in the stupid movie, the Gladiator. Not the Gladiator, it's the one with, maybe it was the Gladiator, the name escapes me at the moment. The one about the Roman general who gets sideways with the emperor and ends up as a gladiator. Now, that movie starts, of course, with Marcus Aurelius in a battle. And this is Marcus, I'm sorry, this is Antoninus Pius, one of the great Roman emperors, one of the absolute best, along with Hadrian and Marcus Aurelius. I'm looking around here for a bust of Marcus Aurelius, but meanwhile, here's another portrait head of Commodus, and this is Commodus's wife. What's her name? Crispina. Now, just to show you how these portrait busts work, here's Antoninus Pius, okay, in this statue. Okay, now here's another portrait bust of Antoninus Pius. Looks just like the other guy. And here's a third one, Antoninus Pius. So obviously the Romans were rather accomplished at the art of portrait busts. Now these are two gorgeous statues from the temple of the deified Hadrian. That's some goddess with a scythe in hand and a sheaf of wheat. This goddess here has a pomegranate in her hand, an anatomically correct pomegranate, I might add. And figs, maybe? Or olives. Olives, I guess. Yeah. Olives in her other hand. Now, these are thought to actually be personifications of certain Roman provinces with agricultural products. Maybe Egypt, it's conjectured. These two ladies, but these are just beautiful. I knew I'd find Marcus Aurelius around here somewhere. And there he is. The great Stoic philosopher, emperor, and father of Commodus. So all you fathers out there who are watching this, if you're disappointed in any one of your children, meditate on Marcus Aurelius and his spawn, Commodus, the evil one, the personification of evil. Anyway, so here are a bunch of more portrait busts. We won't pause all of these. This is really a nice museum. The things here are not as spectacular, perhaps, as the Capitoline Museum, but they're all very nice. Now here's something I've never ever seen before. This is a really fine sarcophagus from about the year 330 to 350. It's scenes from the New Testament. Quite amazing. Of course, Constantine legalized Christianity. I guess all the Christians came out of the woods. But I've never actually seen any sculpture, Christian sculpture this old, this early. Every time I come to Rome, I learn something new. This is fantastic. This is obviously up here. Preaching going on. It's Jesus in the temple, I guess. Over here, this would appear to be the miracle of the loaves. And not sure what this is. Maybe same thing. I'm thinking this may be miracle of the loaves, because you can see the baskets. 7, 8. There's three urns, 5 baskets. Ah, the Nativity. And what have we here? Not sure. The Transfiguration, maybe? Not sure what that is. This is unbelievable. Okay, the sign cleared it up. This top thing is from a different sarcophagus. That's from, top one's from around the year 300. And this one down here is from 350. So that makes the top one even earlier Christian art than I've seen. It must also be said that this is not of the high quality of the artwork we've just been looking at. You can already see the decline of the arts as early as 350. You can see it on the Arts of Constantine too. The Arts of Constantine, he had to steal a bunch of stuff from other arches. Now this is about the year 300, not Christian. These are various demigods. And again, the quality of the artwork is not up to what we saw earlier. But these are fantastic pieces. This is Sarcophagus with the Muses, 280 to 290 AD, or as they say in Italy, DC dopo Christi. Beautiful piece of work. This museum has got some primo stuff. What can I say? Look at all these sarcophaguses here. Sarcophagi, I should say. Now I'm going to show you in a minute an amazing sarcophagus. But first, a preview of what we're going to see. Okay. That is amazing. Let's get some close-ups of the battle. This reminds me of that sarcophagus we saw in the Vatican Museum, where the face of the deceased was not yet carved. This one here, the face of the deceased is not carved. And then up here, these are the domestic scenes of the wife. Her face is not carved. This is from the 3rd century AD and depicts a battle. Well, we know what it is because we just read about it. Let's go around to the side. Hard to see what's going on here in the light. These would appear to be the prisoners on the other side here, being led away. Again, hard to tell. Low relief. This is just amazing, this thing. Wow. Relieve this just a little bit more. All that's true, but let's not forget about the great Hermann in the forest, destroyed a Roman army under Augustus. And actually it wasn't under Augustus. Augustus was the emperor. The legions were those of Varus. Varus, where are my legions? Said Augustus famously. Teutoburg Forest, the Germans, years later, erected a monstrous statue of Hermann, known to the German, or the Romans as Arminius, but to the Germans as Hermann. I've never seen that statue of Hermann. It's somewhere in Germany. Okay, continuing our tour of the Palazzo Massimo. This is a room dedicated to the Roman gods. That has to be Jupiter. Let's see. What did I guess that wrong? It's the bearded Dionysius. It's easy to see, though, where later on the imagery of the Christian God with the beard came from. Here's another Dionysius, or however you pronounce it. But I'm going to show you one of the most amazing, bizarre statues in all of Rome. In a minute. This is Artemis. This is the sleeping hermaphrodite. Thus far, looking every bit like a woman, but look here. Very strange. The sign says this strange statue is a 2nd century AD copy of a 2nd century BC statue from the eastern provinces. Enough of that. Look at this gorgeous statue. In any case, that's really, really nice. This museum is so beautiful. It's so well done. It's the best kept secret of Rome. And we haven't even gone upstairs yet, where has mosaics and frescoes. We're going to go in here. Here's another gallery. Little statues. That looks like a gymnast there, wouldn't you say, or an acrobat? This looks like athletes in here. Look at this discus thrower. What's interesting about this is a copy of a famous Greek original, if memory serves. There's a copy of this in either the Naples or the Palermo Museum also, but look at this. There's one that didn't survive antiquity, one copy, and here's one that did. These are copies of a 4th century BC Greek statue. And here's another Apollo, not anywhere as nice as the Apollo Belvedere, but still very nice. Not sure what this guy's doing. Here's a beautiful female statue participating in the rites of Dionysus, 3rd century. Amazon stomping a barbarian. Aphrodite at the bath. Another, now again, this is personification of female beauty. She is no supermodel. She's better than a supermodel. This would appear to be looks like the same Aphrodite. See, the Romans made many copies of these successful Greek statues. This would appear to be pretty much 2 copies of the same Greek original. So if you ever come to Rome, you have to come to the Palazzo Massimo. This place is so well laid out, so well lit, so well documented that it boggles the mind. Now we're going to come back through here again. I'm going to show you in the back here some pieces of sculpture on Roman ships. Very interesting. Just amazing. Kitty. Meow. Meow. These were obviously cast from the same mold. Here's some more wolves and lions. And you wouldn't think, at first glance you go, oh, they must have used these for mooring the ship, but that can't be because these aren't strong enough. And sure enough, the sign says these were used for ornamental purposes, because you're not going to see a 6-foot wave comes along. You got these tied to the dock. It's not going to survive. If you're moored to the dock with these, it's just held by these teeth. Not going to work. Okay, I get it. These are from the ships of Nemi. Now, Nemi is a big lake south of Rome, where Caligula had these gigantic party boats, which were basically about the size of cruise ships, maybe a little smaller. And after Caligula was assassinated, they went out and sank these ships. The ships were pulled up around 1900 or so. Or maybe it was during Mussolini's time. I forget, but in any case, they were in a museum. And during the Second World War, the Germans were retreating from the Americans, and they burned the museum down, destroying the ships. But over here, there's a little bit of this ship's timber is left here. I thought of going down to that museum. There's more at Nemi. But now I guess I don't have to, because the good stuff is here. Let's see how good my memory is. Okay, so this is the ship's railing. What's interesting is these heads are not all the same. So they must have had different molds. Okay, next we're going to see the frescoes of the Villa of Livia. But I want to keep this, read this. This is one of the most amazing things. I have yet seen in Rome, and I've seen a lot of amazing things. But here's a little bit more. Okay, now, before we walk in here, this is a key to what we're going to see. Okay. Okay, are you ready? Look at this. Ah. Look at this. I'm going to do a 360. And then we're going to get some close-ups. Obviously, some of these are in better state of preservation than the others. This is gorgeous. Look at here. Quince. Can you imagine the reaction of the archaeologist who first found this? The find of a lifetime. Livia was the wife of Augustus, as we know. She was the most beautiful woman in Rome. Augustus forced her, I'm sure it was voluntary on her part, to divorce her husband and marry him. And she wielded great power. We're going to go over here and look at these birds. This particular villa was outside of Rome, a few miles out. Bird. It's an oak tree. One thing I love about this museum is they don't care. Oh, here's some birds in a little cage. They don't care if you use your camera here. They just ask that you don't use your flash. Okay, after the frescoes from Livia, it's hard to imagine anything in here can top that. Venus Howe, you have to go to Pompeii and Herculaneum to top that, or even meet it. But they still have a wonderful collection here. Virtue, honor, Imperium. Okay, so this is the Intarsia room. Basically making pictures out of colored marble. These are from about the year 350 from various aristocratic venues. And it shows you that the aristocrats were still adhering to the pagan religion, because these are definitely classical themes. Hylas saying goodbye to the nymphs. More fantastic mosaics. I wonder where they've been hiding these. Now I know. They're not all in Palermo and Naples. There's some really good ones here. Fantastic, actually. That first big one that we looked at was the Four Seasons. There's just a whole hallway full of these fantastic things.